break is brought to you by Netflix. Head on over to netflix.com/GameBreakerTV to sign up for a free 30-day trial. Hold the presses, everybody. Stop what you're doing right now, because industry analyst Michael Pachter has said that the MMO market has peaked, and we have gotten as many players as we are possibly ever going to get. Everybody stop what you're doing. Panic. Oh my goodness. What are we going to do? Here with us to talk a little bit about what our options might be is GameBreaker writer Jason Winter. Now, Jason, first off, let's look at this claim. What evidence does Pachter have to back up his claim?
Well, he primarily talks about Old Republic and how he was supposed to bring in all sorts of new gamers who were, Star Wars fans, but had never played MMOs, as opposed to other MMOs, which he says, and he's probably right in saying this, that they mostly just take from existing MMOs, like WoW in particular, and sort of was supposed to pull in new people, though, and it hasn't, or it's failing, or whatever, so I get what he's saying along those lines. He does make some sense in that sense.
Well, and it's not even necessarily to throw singular blame on Star Wars, and we'll get into Star Wars specifically here in a second, but it's kind of also got to do with, as you said, Star Wars, the idea of bringing in new players and getting people to try out an MMO that they've never tried before. And it's kind of solely falling on the fact that we're hitting the peak of the amount of people willing to pay $15 a month for a subscription basis. Not so much maybe that MMOs have peaked, but that the subscription model is kind of hit its maximum, and we'll never see necessarily a number that's going to far surpass what we saw with World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I think he's probably right on that sense. I mean, most MMOs are geared toward a gamer crowd, even these days, and pretty much all the hardcore gamers who'd ever play MMOs are probably playing them now. Whereas you look at something like the Wii, which was geared more towards a casual crowd, and that's probably what it'll take, is more casual, friendly MMOs. And to some extent, that's what a free-to-play game, for instance, offers. Maybe not as casual in terms of skill, but in terms of time involved. You don't feel like you have to play forever to get your $15 worth. But and you can see that as a good or a bad thing, but it's probably the wave of the future in any case.
Do you think that mobile gaming and social sites like Facebook gaming have had a big impact on why this is?
They certainly have. I mean, they brought in a lot of people who haven't been into gaming, but if you're talking about the MMO industry, probably the number of people playing Farmville has probably not affected World of Warcraft sub numbers. It's just it's such a totally different crowd. I mean, you might get some people who have never talked about playing a computer game before and are now jumping into that sort of thing, maybe a little bit, but I really think that there isn't a whole lot of new blood being pumped in.
Now, back on topic with Star Wars: The Old Republic specifically, because this is kind of the shining example. It was kind of represented as the poster child of the last subscription-based MMO that could ever be a subscription. And I don't want to say that's failing or that has yet to be argued, but we do know that Star Wars or that BioWare is considering looking at free to play if it means a successful business. So they're at least looking at it, and they're rethinking if they want to be a subscription based game. Now, what are the conclusions he's drawing based on what we've seen with Star Wars?
Well, I think he and other people have said this sort of thing too. I mean, the whole notion that SWTOR is maybe failing or not doing as well as it should. We're never going to have nice stuff again because people are going to be so scared away from making big investments and whatever. I think that's a load of whatever. Because SWTOR, it did bring in. I have some anecdotal evidence. Granted, I have a couple of friends, people I know, who hadn't played MMOs and got into it a little bit. So it brought in some new MMO players, but who knows if it kept those people. And that was more of a quality issue then, because it wasn't possible to be done. If it had been a really good knock it out of the park kind of game, I think it would have done fine. If the point is that we don't have these overly expensive games, we have to spend $300 million on it, or you mentioned 38 Studios again, and they were looking to spend at least somewhere 150 million on Copernicus. If that's what it means, that we don't have games like that, and you have to get by with a mere 40, 50 million, 60 million, which is what a lot of the games that we think are the Guild Wars 2 or the Firefalls or whatever. That's sort of where we think those are. If that's what we have to get by on, is somewhat smaller games, maybe by independent studios, maybe by companies willing to take a risk, try something different, then I think we'll be fine.
Where do you think this leaves the industry in terms of games that we're going to kind of see come out of the woodworks over the next course of the next 5-10 years?
I think we're going to see, like I said, a little more risk taking, a little less adherence to the absolute strict way of the past, because one part, some people are getting tired of it, the whole the exact holy trinity or progression to rating and so on. And for those who aren't, their needs are still pretty well satisfied by WoW. They're not going to necessarily jump into a game that's too close to being a WoW clone, because it's going to be, their needs are satisfied well enough by WoW. So if the industry is going to change, and even to attract new people, it's going to have to do something different, because the people who like what it's doing now are pretty much probably already there.
What does this say? What do you think this has to say then, since you're kind of saying, since WoW is providing the service for $15 a month, that people are going to clone it? A lot of people's mentality, and I completely agree, is why necessarily leave? But what does that say for something like World of Warcraft? We've seen the subscription numbers slipping. They've kind of stabled. We saw a drastic decrease over the course of last year. But does that mean that even World of Warcraft is kind of in hot water of and in danger of losing its subscriptions? Because he says it's peaked. So he doesn't say, he's not saying it's declining. He's just saying we've hit the number of people. We've hit a ceiling. So it's not going to go up. It's not going to. There's nothing that can really go past that high point that was the golden age of World of Warcraft.
Well, it probably is the case that everyone who wants to play World of Warcraft, or ever thought about playing World of Warcraft, probably has already done it by this point. Either they've played it and they still are, they played it and they're not. I mean, it's hard to imagine there being some vast new untapped wealth of people who haven't played World of Warcraft and are just wondering what it's about. So he is probably correct in that it's probably it's what 10 million, I think, is what the last thing I said, and it used to peak at 12 million. Probably isn't going to get back up to 12 million. I mean, obviously, as time goes on, there are going to be new young people or whatever first trying MMOs, so there's going to be a little bit of that. But I think he is more or less correct in that it's going to at most hold steady, maybe rise up a little bit more into the 10 millions or so, but probably stay steady or even go down as time goes on.
Do you think, and you did talk about this a little bit, but do you think this is going to kind of change the direction of what qualifies as success for companies, and games are going to kind of spread out and become a little bit more niche for their market, and kind of target a smaller number of people, but providing a service for what that smaller number of people want?
Yeah, we talked about that in a previous hit. I don't know if I did it with you or with B, but yeah, I mean, that is some way to go, because then it gets that whole, it's not, this game is doing things just like WoW, so I'm going to stick with WoW because it's doing it better. You can specialize in your own little field. Maybe that sort of thing draws in a few new people who, maybe not so much new even, but maybe who played something previous, and now we're going to get back in because they see something else they like, and that's something that will better suit their needs than a previous game did. So there is at least some potential for growth there. But I still think that switching to something a little more casual is going to, having more casual-ish kind of games is what's going to actually bring in the new people.
Guys, this is a crazy conversation, and we'd love to know what your guys' thoughts on this. What do you think about the MMO subscription-based model? Has it peaked? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Is it going to stable off? Is free-to-play going to really make a big stance here? It's got all sides of the angle of the story. Definitely, we want to hear from you guys on what your thoughts are. So leave us a comment below, and keep checking back here for all of your video game news. We talk about MMOs all the time weekly on This Week in MMO, so you guys can catch that every Wednesday at 6 p.m. PDT. Jason, thank you so much for your insight. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.